Yeah, that I would have liked to seen that from the start of the first quarter. But what happened, the same things, I got to watch the film, but the transition defense got away from us again in that first quarter. And they're really explosive when they get on transition. They can hit those threes, and it can be trouble. So we got that shored up, and that went a little bit better. And then that second quarter, I think we held them to 5 points, which was great. I like to think a good percentage of that is us, but probably a little bit of them too. But I thought that was really the key. It got us settled, and I talked to some of you in the presser yesterday. I thought the key to winning this was going to have to be our defense, and it certainly was the case.
Dave, it was funny when Chit Chat Wright first got here, you and everybody else described her as a pass first point guard, and she still is a tremendous passer, initiates the offense, but her willingness to become the shot creator and the shot taker and maker, I guess, how would you describe her progression over the last 2 or 3 months to where she is comfortable being in that role?
Well, I really think she started a lot more if we look at, she's had kind of moments where she's had some games, but then we've been a little silent. And then we've also been silent within games. That's been the issue. Like, she'll be pretty, like maybe the second quarter she's 3 for 4, and then we don't shoot again until the first minute of the fourth. But actually, I talked with her on Monday, before Minnesota game, and I just kind of laid it out, and I said, look, sometimes what you need to do for the team is not maybe what you're most comfortable at, right? And a lot of times that's sacrificing. The kids that have to not play as many minutes, or they're sacrificing, this for that. But in her case, she had to sacrifice her pass first mentality. I said, if we don't shift that, and you're one of our most efficient and pure shooters, a few people are smooth coming off that ball screen. And I mean, obviously tonight, the 5 for 8, she carries this on the 3-point percentage. I said, you've got to increase volume, and you've got to increase your voice. And, she is so earnest in our little film session, and she looked up at me with those eyes, and I got you, coach. And she had a really good performance at Minnesota. That was one of her bright spots in the Minnesota game. And for her to follow that up again tonight, I thought coming out of the chutes doing that, that's really a key for us, because we don't have she just is one of our best scoring punches.
Yeah, your 3 recent games were all against the 3 best defenses in the Big Ten, both field goal and scoring. Washington was 4th, I think, at both times, close to it. How important was it to be able to go up against a team with a really good defense after you struggled the last 3 games, and then be able to push through and generate offense?
Yeah, I think it was really important. I think it's important just for a psyche of a young person, and maybe a 57-year-old or older person. But I think just the progression of a season is, I think I've just always really understood, this Big Ten is really, really hard. Wisconsin's playing, really great basketball, but you look at that record and you're like, oh, everybody should beat Wisconsin. Well, they've knocked off, Michigan State. They almost got Washington last night, right? There's just such differences of game plans, and, we just happened to hit, like you said, 3, 4 really good defensive teams after we were, kind of reforming. So I think it is big, for the psyche, the confidence level. And, we're still a work in progress, now with our high-low game. We just sometimes under the lights, we get a little nervous when they sag off of us, and we have 2 or 3 things that we can do, and they work beautifully when we did them. But I'm still trying to get everybody progressing there. But I thought it was really big tonight to handle, because they were pretty good defensively. They're in your face. Nothing comes easy. They're really smart with how they sag. They switch with the front to the back. They really make you earn it. So I'm really, really happy for my team.
You talked about the defense. I mean, obviously the first quarter, like you said, was not quite what you wanted to see. But after that, I mean, they barely doubled that total the rest of the way. And they turned it over 19 times. Well, was there anything in particular that you thought stood out about the defense over the last 3 quarters, or was it just kind of what you said, just the intensity?
Well, I just think we've really been challenging them with the intensity and transitional defense. I think that we haven't been talking in real vocal. that was one thing I thought was markedly different from our Ohio State game. Even before that, we were going with that one with a lot of adrenaline. We just didn't have, people weren't commanding. On transition defense, very rarely are you always perfectly on the person you're supposed to be guarding. But there's a lot of pointing and there's a lot of vocal activity that needs to happen. But we've been pretty silent with that. So we've really harped on that. And then I just wanted to really shore up more of our ball screen defense. And I think that when we settled a little bit, it started to kind of look a little bit more that gritty, kind of that blue collar mentality coming out. And I think that was helpful. I mean, certainly they missed some shots, and that was helpful that they missed them. But I do think our attention to that, the confidence just kept gaining after that second quarter.
Yeah. You went back to Taylor in the starting lineup. Tell us about that decision, and how did that work for Taylor? How did that work for Addie?
Well, I mean, I think that's the hardest thing. I mean, I think that's you got to look at, everything. You got to kind of tweak it, what's working, what isn't. And that decision was, for a team, but also trying to free up the pressure on Addie. Addie in the starting lineup, I don't know if I got it exactly right. She was shooting about 44% as a non-starter, or 55% from 2 and 44 from 3 coming off the bench. And then it was now markedly, it's not apples to apples, we're playing the 3 best defensive teams, but a little bit lower, 20%, 22%, and 13% from 3. And so we're just trying to get her, she's a real high IQ kid, to kind of free her up to come in and not get the very first punch right off the bat. And certainly, team-wise, what's going to give us that punch right away at the beginning? Taylor had been starting prior, when Chit Chat was down and when Kylie was out. And, we had success in those games. And so that's a hard thing. And this was one of those games, Taylor was kind of flowing in that fourth quarter. And that's where you gotta keep passing that baton. Whether you're, Layla had to pass it. I wanted to go with Layla sometimes, but then they went smaller. We missed a couple opportunities when they subbed in their big girl. I wanted to get Layla in, but then they quickly put their smaller unit in. That made sense to have Hannah back at the 5 and Journey at the 4. So is it just the constant, the teaching and having to understand that, it's definitely a team concept, and it's not easy to balance all the minutes. But if there's foul trouble the next game, or, Ava's in foul trouble a lot more, or we got 2 of them in foul trouble, they're all going to be ready to step in and I think have that a bigger role. But that's every coach at this time of year. You're always balancing that. And I think team-wise, it was really good. I think it worked out. Addie didn't have her typical stat line, but I think she did a lot of good things. I have to watch the film. But I thought Taylor Strimlow did a really nice job, shooting 4 for 6, had some big buckets there at the end, and really had some good defensive assignments.
Jan, Hannah came away with another double-double tonight. I mean, she's been on this sustained run of excellence, both in terms of scoring and on the boards. How, from your vantage point, how has she been able to sustain this?
Yeah, I think, just being a senior and, wanting it, and, she had a little better offensive production, but Hannah's always been her will, and I think that's the thing where she's been trying to lead. I've, challenged her with a little more consistency, because we all have to be a little bit more consistent now offensively as we reformed. But, she just, 16 boards tonight, that was the bright spot. We got out rebounded. Most of the times this year, I always wanted to be in the +6 or 7 in rebounding margin, and obviously the losses were not that. But this was one of the, I think, 2 times we haven't done so in a victory. But it certainly was no fault of Hannah with the 16 boards. But, Hannah is actually really shooting a lot better in practices, when they're sagging off, or sometimes there's a mental with that. But I'm anxious to see if I'm going to work on that a lot tomorrow to remind them what happens. And there's some pretty good things that you can do if we'll just remember to do it. But man, I tell you what, she's really was stellar tonight.
Coach, once again, Kylie Fairbach proves she's important to this team. Has a big game. She's a game changer. Talk more about her.
I mean, I thought that Kylie's defense at the beginning, right? I mean, a large story of this game was Sellers, didn't play much that second half. And, her 14 points came pretty tough earned, right? And she wasn't able to get her 3-point shot going. And Kylie was really locked in on that defensive scheme. And, she's just really pretty instrumental, with what we want to do. And that's, and Kylie will tell you, we just didn't have our best defensive games the last other three. But I think, tonight Kylie really locked in and knew what she had to do. But I think Kylie was a big story tonight because their engine is really Sellers. Now, that Avery Howell's not too shabby either, right? But I thought Kylie's defense was sensational.
Speaking of Kylie, I mean, I know she's really gone through spurts of, offense probably isn't where she'd like it to be in her final year, but I guess how big was it for her confidence level and everything, that just that shot that kind of sealed the deal with
Yeah,
you guys up?
yeah,
Again,
yeah.
she struggled from the field, but I guess
Yeah.
how big was that for her
Yeah.
confidence, just the leadership?
Yeah, I think that was huge because, I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, like, I just wish that the whole world could see how hard these kids work. It's just so easy to criticize that they're not this and they're not that and why are they playing and I can't believe that they have this. And I'm telling you, these kids work, I mean, my kids are relentless workers. And those are just fun moments. Forget the fact, it's like a mom moment, I call them. Forget the fact that it helped us win the game. I was just so happy for her because she wants it so much. But her role is definitely defensively. So the better other people can score, that helps take pressure off because she's putting so much energy and her strengths are there that I think that was probably, it's a little bit of why we got a little off the rails sometimes the last games because I gotta do better coaching them and getting us in better positions, but also relaxing them. Because, I mean, they just wanted it so much. And so Kylie was forcing offense and trying to play defense. And we just kind of lost it a little bit, I think, because you want it so much. And tonight, that shot, I mean, her smile was just like coming to the timeout. That was priceless. So I think it was big for her confidence. And I'm going to certainly draw upon it to remind her.
You mentioned the other day when we talked to you that you guys, during this 3-game losing streak, you weren't in the locker room panicking during it. But how important was today, though, to just get a win over obviously a ranked team? It's going to be a good resume win, just to be able to reinforce to the team, hey, you've mentioned about the Ohio State game, and now this one, say, hey, this is the team that we can beat.
Yeah, I think it was really great because I mean, Bailey, he told me with our seventh quad one win, maybe the third most or whatever. So they're always good to stack, right, when you're going. But I just think they needed it for their psyches. They needed to feel that again. It's just been, it's been tough. You played really good opponents, but I just think, it's easier. I mean, I hate losing, but we understand when you're in the locker room how hard the opponents are. It's just when you look at it, oh, we should beat that team because they're lower. Oh, we should beat that team because, we have X, Y, and Z. But that's the beauty of sport. But this league is so hard, and now we got to go on the road and play at Nebraska, right? And so getting one after we've lost a few, and then getting it without, now reforming, I think was really, really big.
Back to the defense, one of the best things maybe you did, they shot 2 free throws. Was that just being in position or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think you get a little bit lucky with how they're, calling, I suppose. But we're not really a hands-on, we don't get a lot of fouls reaching, and we just were pretty locked in on their actions. They run a lot of the Princeton offense, and really knowing where they like to get their, straight line drives. We didn't do as great of a job as I think we did in the second half, in the first half. We were trying to limit touches a little bit on 0 and 2. And if you're limiting touches, denial. If you're a really great on-ball defensive team and you want to get in their face and you're denying pressure defense, you don't really have a lot of people in the gaps. We play usually a lot of gap defense. So we try to pressure, but we're not totally up in your face. But we want to be in the gap so that straight line drive doesn't look so open, But when I'm denying and you're Taylor and you're trying to keep someone in front of you, but you don't have your normal gap, that can get tricky. But we felt that it was a little better tonight to try to limit 0 and 2. And we were going to take our chances with if we could contain. And I think everybody, for the most part, now I'll watch the film and probably see a few times that we got pretty lucky that they could have, should have driven. But I think that we really locked in better. I can't explain it. It just even, attention to scouts, they weren't quite as sharp the last 3 games or so. But I thought the way we knew our scouts, we knew our personnel, shoot around, we weren't messing around. So I just think that they were locked in and they knew we couldn't afford some of those things.
I have a question. It seemed like the previous couple of games struggled with closeouts on threes.
Mm-hmm.
And this game seemed to be a lot more in tune defensively, got their challenge shots a lot more. Was that something that was reinforced over the last week, or is it just that organically?
Yeah, no, I mean, we had the bye. We had to sit on the loss, set a bye. So Friday, I just kind of, after that, I just went back to closeout drills. I didn't have an opponent that we had to you had to stop 0 or you had to get in the face. I did closeout drills. We ran. We did help defense. Just went back to basic things that sometimes, well, not sometimes, a lot of times when you get into the throes of a season, you can never really work on yourself. You're so, now, tomorrow I got to worry about Britt Prince, right? You got to worry about how you're going to keep her contained, all those things. But for that time, I just, went back to a pretty intense practice. And then I gave them 2 days off, Saturday and Sunday. Because I think you do get this time of year, you're a little tired. And heck, a lot of high schools, they're in tournaments by now. And so it's like, you're like, gosh, we're still here when you're a young kid. So I made it a point to go back to basics and do some old-fashioned drills and just try to remind them what's needed. And I think that was probably helpful. Probably the rest was helpful too, although you don't really want to take a day off. You want to keep trying to get better.
Avery Howell's been on your recruiting radar a couple times, and she led her team with 10 rebounds as a big guard tonight.
Mm-hmm.
What does she bring to the Washington team?
Well, I mean, she averaged, I think, 14 boards she got against Washington. She just is, her shooting ability is amazing, but she just has a nose for the ball, and she's gritty. She competes. She was a big get for them, but I'm probably, we were in the probably top 5 or so, or who knows. I'm sure Washington came in second the first time around. So I tried, everybody in the country probably tried after she was going to leave USC. But that's been a big addition for them because you pair her with Sellers, and that's a mighty 1-2 punch. But, she's a great kid. Tina is, I'm friendly with Tina in the league. She just is a really nice person, runs really good stuff. I know her kids really love playing for her. So, yeah, I think it was a natural fit then for Avery to go back to Washington.
All right, thanks, Jan.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your coverage.
Thank you.